Good afternoon. The January 23rd, 2024 regular council meeting is called to order at 4 o'clock. Council would like to acknowledge the Ucluelet on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Are there any late items? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Kennington, Councillor Mafty, all in favour? None opposed, that carries. There are 3 sets of minutes for approval this evening. The first is from the November 7th, 2023 regular council meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the November 7th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Hoare,
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson, all in favour? None opposed, that carries. The second set of minutes are from the November 14th, 2023 regular committee of the whole meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the November 14th, 2023 regular committee of the whole meeting as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Mafty, Councillor Kennington, all in favour? None opposed, that carries. And the final minutes are from the November 14th, 2023 special council meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the November 14th, 2023 special council meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Hoare,
I'll second that.
Councillor Anderson, all in favour? None opposed, that carries. We have a delegation today from BC Emergency Health Services. Welcome, and please speak into the mic because this meeting is being video recorded and streamed online. And welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'm pleased to be here today to represent BC Ambulance with my colleagues Carew Bracewell, Director for BC Ambulance, and Rochelle Cole, the Unit Chief for the ambulance station here in Ucluelet. And I am Lindsay Essen, the Manager for the region. Together, we would like to give acknowledging and thanks with respect specifically to the traditional and unceded territories of the Ucluelet and Nuu-chah-nulth region where we are honored today to share time on their lands. We have great news for you and recent improvements. We have a new 3-year collective agreement with the union that represents paramedics and dispatchers. It includes changes that will help improve coverage in patient care, particularly in rural and remote areas, stabilize staffing, increase employee retention, and improve employee wellness. In February 2023, BCEHS and the union representing paramedics and emergency medical call takers, they ratified a 3-year collective agreement that's going to take us into March 31st, 2025. And the ratified collective agreement includes a number of improvements. So we'll be changing emergency services capacity in rural and remote stations that serve your community and the surrounding areas. We'll be phasing out the SOC model, the scheduled on-call model in rural and remote areas, with a goal of a more tailored approach to the community and the station. Provincially, we're recruiting over 400 paramedics, but the mixed shift model that we're transitioning to is providing a much more stabilized approach to staffing. For Ucluelet, specifically, the community paramedic program will now be a standalone, full-time position. And we are currently in the process of recruiting that position. For your community, we've captured the data of 394 emergency events for the response area during the period of December 2022 to December 2023. And the current station staffing sits at 13 casual positions. only one of the 4 scheduled on-call positions are staffed. And in April 1st of this year, this is the anticipated start for the new mixed shift model in Ucluelet. We'll be recruiting for 8 0.75 full-time equivalent, and most of these positions are going to go to local hires. And what's next? As we recruit for the new staffing model, we need to consider that we've outgrown our current station footprint. And we need to work together to attract and retain paramedic staff. In the spirit of open communication, how can we stay connected in the future? At this moment, currently, we're renting a hotel room for housing our staffing. And come April, we're looking to expand that to a second hotel room, which bumps us up to approximately $10,000 per month that we're spending on rent for housing. We're in the process of exploring putting a modular in the back parking lot and exploring options for temporary permits beyond a seasonal need until we have a long-term solution for a new station. Beyond that, here's our contact information, and we welcome any dialogue, questions, and any way to assist your community with this new staffing model.
Thank you for your presentation. Does council have any questions? No. Councillor Hoare?
I'm not sure it's a question.
That's
I'm
okay.
excited to see how this one pans out. And I'm curious, do you have, I want to say, people waiting in the wings locally who might be some of those hires, or do you have any sense of that? I know there were some people doing training, but.
Yeah, the way the posting will go, it will go in an alternate between a provincial hire and then local hire. So whoever's currently attached to the station as an employee will be one of the few that will have first dibs at those postings. So we're hoping to find a way to retain them so they can become full-time community members.
Cool, thank you.
And I imagine that means you'll be losing some of your current staff that are on call because they have full-time jobs?
So the on-call model will still exist, as we will still have to cover for book-offs, for vacations, and those sort of fillings. Multiple stations throughout the province still have casual employees to fill those vacancies. So employees that choose to maintain employment with BC Ambulance as a casual basis to support their full-time careers in community can still have that as an option to them. But we're offering a viable career path for people in community.
So it's a combination of the two then.
Absolutely.
That's great to hear. All right. Well, thank you for your presentation, and we'll keep your contact information.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Is there any unfinished business? Seeing none, we have 4 report items this evening. The first item is 8.1 Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Grant Application. This report will be presented by the Fire Chief, Chief Geddes. Welcome.
Through the mayor, thank you. So I'm here today just once again to seek council's endorsement of a grant application for $29,000 and change that would allow us funding or provide funding to repair one of our old and worn out tsunami warning system units. And a little bit of history. I know Mr. Lawrence updated you on the history of the system, but the system was indeed gifted to us from the city of Port Alberni and the ECRD before I was hired. When I was hired, it was a priority that was landed on my desk to get the system up and running, which we did with no guarantee that how long it would last. And here we are now looking to needing to replace the system if we want it to function as necessary. What I've been able to do is there were two towers. There still physically are 2. There's one at Amphitrite Point, one at Cedar Road parking lot. They both had failed. and parts are obsolete now because when we got the system, we were gifted it. It was 25, 30 years old at that point. So parts are becoming harder and harder to find, as well as somebody who has the knowledge to actually work on those systems. I was able to find a company out of Campbell River, North Island Communications, who's very well versed in radios and electronics in general, and they've become subject matter experts really on our particular system, and have been a big help to myself and the district to limp our system along and keep it going. What they've done is taken the electrical components out of the Amphitrite system and transplanted them to Cedar Road. So we were able to make 2 out of 1 basically. With no guarantee how long the Cedar Road system is going to work. As we tested it last week, and it's functioning now. But it's a weekly occurrence for me to have to go down there and tinker with something or adjust something. And so, anyways, this will be the first step in repair replacement of getting a reliable system in place for the district. So, I'll gladly answer any questions. That's the history in a nutshell.
Thank you. I've been missing hearing that siren on the third Wednesday of the month?
It's been sporadic. I know you've been trying to capture. Hopefully now, yes, it'll be the third Wednesday, every Wednesday at noon.
Perfect. Thank you. And this grant will pay for 100% up to $30,000.
Through the mayor, that's correct. Yes, and I've applied to all things being equal, and if it works out well, we can get this one system with brand new components for just under $30,000, $29,000 and change. If everything goes well.
So that would replace the one on Cedar Road? So we still have a non-working one at Amphitrite?
Through the mayor, that's correct. And now what we may be able to do, I'm not sure the feasibility of taking the electrical components that are currently at Cedar Road, if we wanted to get Amphitrite Point, buy some more time. If council wishes to invest some more money in repairs on that, we could transplant the entire system that's been pieced together out to Amphitrite until we can get that system going again next year. This grant stream is an annual stream, as you know, and I'll be happy to apply for it next year if it comes out again. And with the goal of having brand new components at both systems fully funded is my goal.
And did we not have a third system somewhere?
Through the mayor, no, we never did. There was some odds and ends of parts, I believe. It was just sort of all the pieces showed up here, I think, one day from the city, and I discovered it at Public Works Yard when I first started, and so there's only the 2 that I'm aware of that we were able to make out of there are only enough speakers and electrical components for 2.
Got it. Any questions from council? Councillor Mafty?
I'm just wondering about the range of the new unit. If it was installed at Cedar Road, what would the sort of approximate radius of audibility be? Would the whole town be able to hear it, or is there a dead spot that you're anticipating?
Through the mayor, the distance of broadcast for the system is very weather dependent. So which way the wind's blowing, literally, barometric pressures, all that kinds of, it's quite a science. And every time I test it, I get feedback from random people say, oh, I couldn't hear it this week, or I could hear it loud and clear. What's changed? And nothing's changed other than the weather. So it is really weather dependent. What I can tell you is the system at Cedar Road has 9 speakers and 9 amplifiers in there, whereas the one Amphitrite has only 5. So it's proportionately, it's almost twice as more powerful as the one at Amphitrite. Given that's the center of town and the sort of the hub of town was the thought. There was, prior to my being hired, there was some testing done on siren locations. I understand Alberta Communications had come down and done some testing of locations of where to put these things. So we used that data along with Mr. Boyson, who was the CAO at the time. We came up with a plan to put one Amphitrite and one downtown, with the goal to hopefully expand so that there is really good coverage and some reciprocity. If one speaker is down, that you could still probably hear another one, such as they've done in the Alberni Valley over the years. As a child growing up, I remember vividly the testing and the actual live firing of those things, and you couldn't hear them in certain parts of the Alberni Valley, and they've added to that system now where it's pretty, they have pretty inclusive coverage. So that would be the goal eventually. But yeah, so sorry, long answer to a question. It's very dependent, and there is no off the top of my head, I'm not sure how many decibels it is, but very weather dependent.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
So given the strength of the Cedar Road one, it probably would make sense to transplant it down to Amphitrite in the temporary meantime.
Through the mayor, that's my thought. But again, entirely up to you if council wishes to do that. There's an expense of it'd probably be a couple $1,000s to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate it would be much more than that. A day's work for the radio company to do that. The last time they were down and did the transplanting of the components to Cedar Road, the final bill was around $2,000. So I would assume it would be similar to put it all back.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions? Councillor Anderson?
I was just going to ask through the mayor if we had to do like a full replacement up at Amphitrite, like what would the cost be for like a brand new system up there? Just I know it's a ballparky kind of thing, but
Yeah, so through the mayor, basically with this grant, it will give us the equivalent of a brand new system because the poles were brand new when we bought them not quite 5 years ago when I had them installed 3-4 years ago now. The box, the actual stainless steel compartment that the equipment's physically housed in is literally bomb proof. It's 30 years old, but they haven't changed over the years. So basically the only thing really needing replacement is the electrical components, the brains inside the box.
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. So quick follow-up question with not directly related to those, but in the event of a tsunami, I remember at one point there was something that happened up in the Aleutians, and I was just trying to find a website, like what's the best one? Is it NOAA? How do we figure out in the event of something that could affect us here? Would we get like an Amber Alert text, or like what would be the best place to go if there's all of a sudden there's some sort of chatter about a potential tsunami?
Through the mayor, yeah, NOAA's website is a good one, specifically locally. Our website has gone a little stagnant, as we know, and it is in the process of renewal, refreshment, getting a new website this year. Due to instances such as this, we need a more user-friendly website because that would be our number one place to send people to for information up to the minute, because in a perfect world we could update that momentarily and have a page as soon as somebody goes to euclid.ca. If there was an impending event, that's the first thing they would see. That's the only thing it would say. We would have the ability to override everything else on there because of the potential of an event. Right now, we always encourage people to sign up for our phone and email notifications through Connect Rocket. And I would encourage council to do the same if they're not on that list. That's easily done through the website as well if you follow the tabs to emergency management. So that is the main number one way we would get the message out quickly, whether we need to evacuate or not, perhaps. If rumors are flying out there and people are getting ready, we can send official information out timely through that avenue.
Are the messages that come out can you modify them on the fly? So like if you have the amplifier saying, can you say that there's a tsunami potentially, or is it always going to be evacuate immediately? Can you change that message so when people can hear it, they'll kind of be able to brace for something?
Through the mayor, again, that's part of the archaic part of our system, and that it's not. I can't do that on the fly. You have to be a radio tech and have the appropriate capabilities through the manufacturer. And backing up a little bit of history on that, it was the system was installed by Alberta Communications, and they've since gone out of business, so they're no longer a local business. Relatively quickly, that could be down here in a couple hours when I had problems. And early on, they were great, and then they've gone by the wayside, and that sort of left us in a little bit of a lurch trying to find somebody familiar with this. So we don't easily, I can't modify. It has preset messages in there. And newer systems, yes, you could have the ability to, more expensive, by updating the processor involved as well, which would be another expense. And I don't know what that would be off the top of my head as well. So, and
interesting to look into, moving forward, for potentially the next one at Amphitrite. Yeah.
Through the mayor, absolutely, yes. I do agree that would be a great improvement, would be the ability to customize that.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council?
Through the mayor, if we're not successful, what's the plan B?
Through the mayor, I've had pretty good success with these grants, but I mean, we can't we can't guarantee that. My plan B for that is that I would like to see this in the. I would recommend that this is in the budget for 2024. Wherever the funding comes from. I don't believe there's capital reserves have built up enough to cover this for fire and emergency management. But I would, again, that'd be up to council. But and where that money comes from, it would be up to our CAO/CFO to decide, and with council's direction on that. Yeah, but I would, I would be certainly recommend that we fund that through the district if we're not successful.
Any comments, Mr. Lawrence?
Absolutely. So currently we have the one tsunami siren within the budget. It's being offset by a potential grant. If we're unsuccessful with the grant, then we can use general reserves to fund it if council wishes to proceed with the replacement immediately.
And what is the deadline for this this grant?
Through the mayor, I don't have that in front of me. It is in the agenda on the last page of the grant application. I believe it is February is the cutoff. Mr. Gregg, do you happen to have that handy? I want to say February 23rd off the top of my head is when this grant is due, but that's just a guess.
Well, let's wish you luck with this one.
Thank you.
Yes. And there is a recommendation. Would council like to make a motion?
I will move that council approves the District of Ucluelet's Community Emergency Preparedness Fund grant application for the replacement of the tsunami warning system in the amount of $29,943. Together?
Yes.
And that council provides overall grant management.
Thank you. Councillor Kennington, do I have a seconder?
Second that.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion?
It is February 23rd.
February 23rd is the deadline. Great. All in favor? None opposed? That carries. Thank you, and
Thank
good
you
luck.
very much.
Fingers crossed.
The next report item is 8.2 SD 23-05 strata conversion of a previously occupied building, 1683 Larch Road. This report will be presented by the Director of Planning. After he speaks, the applicant will have an opportunity to address council. Mr. Gregg.
Thank you. Through the mayor, just very briefly, I think that it's explained in the council report that's in your agenda, but I'll just give a really brief overview, and if you like I can pull up some images, but I'm not sure they're necessary. About a year ago this property went through a zoning amendment and a development permit was issued, and so that was for there's an existing building that fronts right onto Larch Road, which was going to be converted into 4 new multifamily dwelling units, plus Mr. Carson proposed to build a new building at the rear with some new condominiums that could be either a long-term accommodation or resort condo uses. So that was approved, issued the permit last September. He sort of scaled back his plans, and so the development permit was amended. The new plan does not include the new building, and so it was to now the plan is to renovate the existing building, which can only be used for long-term accommodation. So they're taking an existing building, gutting it, turning it into 4 units, adding a carport on the back and garden space where the other building was going to be as part of that. So that was essentially not having an impact on the form and character on the street or anything like that. So that amendment is something that at the staff level we were able to amend. But the other part of it is his intent is, when he's done with the construction, is to stratify the building, and that's something that under the Strata Property Act needs a council resolution because it is a previously occupied building, and there are policies around that many municipalities have. Generally, those policies are about not losing rental housing. And in this case, the existing building, there's no housing being lost. That there was essentially it's vacant now. There isn't a tenant. There aren't tenants being displaced. That legislation is really, and why councils and municipalities have the say on rental or on the strata conversion is because you see, like in the cities where old apartment buildings, being converted to condominiums mean you have numerous tenants that get displaced by that. So that really doesn't fit in this case. There was one caretaker dwelling that's been vacant for some time and is now essentially gone because they've initiated the demolition and they're stripping out of the building. So really they're working within the zoning that they have and carrying through on the plan that it had previously been approved, but it does need a resolution of council around that strata conversion before at the end of the project, when they finish their building renovations and have occupancy and whatnot, and the strata documents going through, the approving officer would need to see that motion of council in order to authorize the thing going through land titles. If there are any questions, I can certainly attempt to answer them. And as I said, if there's any desire, I could pull up the plans from the original DP and sort of show what the changes are.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. You're referring to some images that are part of our package, or is this from the former?
The amended development permit plan, I think, is in the attached, which shows it is the existing building that fronts on Larch. It was really that if there was a desire, we found the images from last year where they were showing the building tucked into the back, but really it's the front building is the question, which is the white building that many, I'm sure all of you have seen, that's quite close to Larch Road.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Anderson?
Not really a question, but just more of a comment. I think this is pretty much in line with where we're going in town right now, and taking a place and adding new, essentially, units for sale in there, and it's not displacing anyone. I had to read up on stratification of a current building, and it's exactly what you said. It's the issue is usually because you're switching from rental apartments to ownership condos. So, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with this at all.
Okay, if, does the applicant wish to speak? Do we have Mr. Carson online?
We do not.
Okay, then there is a recommendation if council would like to make a motion. Councillor Anderson?
I move that council approve the strata conversion of the previously occupied residential building located at 1683 Larch Road as part of a renovation to create 4 new dwelling units within the existing building.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Thank you, Mr. Gregg. The next report is 8.3, rescheduling the February 13th, 2024 regular council meeting. Mr. Rotenberg, I believe you're presenting this one.
Through the mayor, staff have identified that some staff members have a conflict on February 13th, as we'll be in collective bargaining on the 12th, 13th, and 14th. We're recommending that the February 13th meeting be moved from February 13th to February 15th at 4 p.m. I've got a draft motion here in front of you if that timing would work for council. If that motion were adopted, we would give notice by posting an amendment to our annual general meeting schedule, or our annual meeting schedule, to our public notice posting places. So that's our website, the notice board down at the district office, and the notice board here at the community center.
Thank you. So that would move from a Tuesday to a Thursday, correct? Does
Exactly.
February 15th work for council?
I have 2 separate conflicts on that day. We're hosting a speaker series event that I've got to introduce, and I've got my kids as well. So even if I could arrange for a babysitter, I couldn't. It would be difficult for me to reschedule the speaker that we've already booked.
I saw the notice come out for your speaker series. It looks great.
If I'm the only one, I can try to get somebody else to do the intro, but it's not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that works for everybody else, as far as we know.
Other than my class that starts at 7 o'clock.
We'll try and make it a short meeting. All right, and you have a motion ready for us? Is that the one in my paperwork, Mr. Rotenberg?
I've added the time.
Okay, so I can make the motion. I'll move that the February 13th, 2024 regular council meeting be rescheduled to February 15th, 2024 at 4 o'clock.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries. Thank you. The final report item is 8.4, Introduction of District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw Number 1334, 2024, and options for elector approval. This report will also be presented by the Manager of Corporate Services, Mr. Rotenberg.
Through the mayor. This report is doing two things. The first thing it's doing is introducing the District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw. The second thing it's doing is asking council how they would like to receive elector approval for this bylaw. The reason you need electoral approval, this bylaw is an exception to the rule. The reason you need electoral approval for this bylaw is because the section of park we're seeking to dispose of to the food bank on the edge for $1 is in a park. And because it's in a park, in order to close the park and approve the disposition, you need to obtain elector approval. There are two ways of obtaining elector approval. In order to not be confusing, I'm going to use old language, but there's something called assent voting, which is akin to a referendum. And there's something called an alternative approval process, which is akin sort of to a petition. The referendum or assent voting opportunity asks the electors if they approve the disposition. You receive elector approval if 50% plus one, so if more than half of those who participate approve it. Alternatively, no joke intended here, the alternative approval process is sort of the opposite. What you ask the electors is, do you oppose the disposition, or in other words, do you oppose the bylaw? If 10% or more of the estimated number of electors oppose the bylaw, then you do not receive elector approval for the AAP, and you have options. Your options in that case are to abandon the process, abandon the bylaw, look for a new approach, or to go to assent voting. Now, there's a bunch of different things associated with referendums and assent voting. So generally assent voting will take approximately 80 days to get done. It's an expensive process. It's akin to an election. Whereas alternative approval will take at the very least 32 days because you need a 30-day response period to get done. What else can I say about this? So the bylaw is in your package here. The bylaw very much reflects the purchase and sale agreement, which council has already approved. As council knows, the purchase and sale agreement is subject to the adoption of this bylaw, which requires elector approval. Staff are estimating that a fair determination of the total number of electors is 1,730 electors. That determination is based on recent information provided by BC Elections, which outlines the number of registered voters. So those are the resident electors, not the non-resident property electors, as well as information derived from our recently updated non-resident property elector list. That's how we get to the 1,730, and then the threshold for objection is 10% of that, so that's the 173 electors. So what we're looking for today are two things: to give the bylaw its first, second, and third readings, and then for council to make a number of motions associated with the alternative approval process. And they're generally this: first, that we should seek approval through an AAP or alternative approval process, that council establishes the form, which is Appendix B, and includes the question for the electors to answer at the very top of the form as the form to be used for that alternative approval process. that council establish that a fair determination of the total number of electors is that 1,730 electors, and that the threshold of that 10% is 173. And finally, that council determines that the deadline for receiving elector response forms is March 13th, 2024 at 4 p.m. That is more than the 30-day threshold. Counting associated with these time periods is a little bit funny. You have to count from the day after the second notice, and you do not count the deadline, so you need 30 clear days between the deadline and the second notice. In terms of how we're going to communicate this AAP process is we will follow Section 94 of the Community Charter, which requires us to post the notice of the alternative approval process in 2 consecutive editions of the Westerly News. We'll also be posting the notice on our website and our public notice posting places. And we'll be putting the documents related to this matter on our website, including the bylaw. And those documents will also be available at the district office. I am obviously here to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Rotenberg. There's an awful lot of rules associated with this. Does council have any questions?
Makes sense.
Yep. All right. There are 6 recommendations, and I believe they should be made separately, correct?
That was my one question.
Yes.
I've got this.
Okay.
I will move that council give first, second, and third reading to District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw number 1334, 2024.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Hoare, seconded by Councillor Kennington. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I'll move that council seek approval of the electors for District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw number 1334, 2024 through an alternative approval process.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I move that council establish the elector response form as attached to Report 24-08, Appendix B, for the alternative approval process for District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw number 1334, 2024.
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I move that council establish that a fair determination of the number of electors is 1,730 for the alternative approval process for a District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw number 1334, 2024.
Second.
Councillor Kennington seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I move that council establish that 173 electors is the 10% response threshold for the alternative approval process for District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw number 1334, 2024.
Second.
Councillor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries.
I move that council establish the deadline for receiving elector responses for the alternative approval process for District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw number 1334, 2024 is March 13th, 2024 at 4 p.m.
I'll second.
Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries. Thank you. Thank you for that comprehensive report, Mr. Rotenberg. The next item of business is bylaw item 9.1, zoning amendment for a Forbes Road food bank. This item will be presented by the Director of Community Planning, Mr. Gregg.
Thank you. Thanks. Through the mayor, this is a sort of companion piece around the food bank, and really this is a zoning amendment bylaw for clarifying the use of that, what I'll refer to as the new food bank parcel, that parcel A that would be created down on as part of Tugwell Fields. The bylaw does essentially 3 things. It adds a definition of food bank. It designates the new parcel, the Lot A, that same area, as the food bank parcel as P1 public institutional, and then allows for the food bank use as a principal use on that parcel, and clarifies that does not include a thrift store or free store, that it really is just food bank uses. We heard that was a interest of council to make sure that.
Could you speak up just a little bit, please?
Sorry. The third piece of the bylaw clarifies that on that parcel it is permitted to have food bank as a principal use, and clarifies that food bank use does not include a thrift store. It really is focused on the feeding the hungry, I think is the words in the legal definition of it.
Any questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Gregg.
Thank you.
There is a recommendation, and this can be read all together. Is that correct? Yes.
I'll move that council, with regard to a zoning change to allow a food bank on a proposed parcel located within a portion of Tugwell Fields Park, number 1, give first and second reading to District of Ucluelet Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1336, 2024. And 2, direct staff to give notice for a public hearing to be held on District of Ucluelet Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1336, 2024. And 3, that council signal that if bylaw number 1336, 2024 is successful in attaining a third reading, this bylaw will not be carried forward for adoption until the conclusion of the elector approval process for the related District of Ucluelet Parkland Disposal Bylaw number 1334, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Mafty. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed. That carries. Thank you. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, there are 2 correspondence items. Would council like to bring either of them forward for discussion?
There's maybe the first one. I think we have the author of the correspondence is here.
It's a letter regarding its input on the development on High Focus Island. Did you want to bring it forward for discussion? I think Ekistics is gathering feedback from their open house that was held last Thursday. So this, I'm assuming, could be part of that feedback.
It is. What's the next step with that? If is Acoustics coming back? Is that how that works with their?
Mr. Lawrence, can you answer that question?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So generally with developments of this nature, they are presented to council already. They take it to a public input session. They'll go back, take that information, make adjustments or not to their plans. They'll create a package to be submitted to the district through the planning department. Planning department will take that information, have for a fairly lengthy conversation about that, and it'll come back to council as a zoning amendment, development permit, whatever the case may be. We don't know what they're asking at this point in time. And once that application has been submitted and report developed, then it's brought forward for council for comment and further discussion from council and possibly community, depending on what they're asking.
Right.
So there's quite a process to go forward for any application, whatever that may look like coming forward.
Right. Okay.
I did attend that public open house, and there was a board there that showed next steps, which I don't know if it's on their website, but I did go to their website, which is maywind.ca. And there is an option for public to provide feedback right then and there as well. So if anybody's interested in that couldn't attend last Thursday, there's still a way to provide feedback.
What was that, Maywind?
Maywind, I believe it's .ca. Let me take a look. It just says Maywind. Every paper I'm looking at just says Maywind, but I think it's maywind.ca.
As long as the item's up for discussion, I also went to the open house, and I heard from a number of people that same evening, and sort of the same thing. They're like, "So is this happening?" And I was like, "No, this is early days yet." But I think this letter is very cogent, and it hits a lot of the points that were brought up by a number of people in a particularly eloquent and well-supported way. And I think it's something that behooves us to consider. I feel like a lot of these things move really slowly, but there's a point at which they kind of pick up momentum, and it would be really nice for everyone to have a clear understanding of, what's involved in the proposal as it nears its final form. I know that we've received a lot of communication from Ekistics. They've sort of downgraded their proposal. What they presented at the open house is, presumably closer to what they want to move forward with. But what struck me about the issues raised in the letter here is that they're valid almost regardless of the scope and scale of the development. As long as it's remotely close to what they're proposing, a lot of these issues are still totally valid. If they were going to say, well, we're going to build 5 homes, then a lot of this doesn't really matter. But yeah, I read this, and I think it was well written and timely.
Yes, so there is still time to provide feedback. I think when I was at the open house, the main issues were traffic, density, and basically the sewage lagoon. So I'm sure they're going to hear a lot of feedback from a lot of people about those things, and I found the panel that they showed at the open house, which shows the whole process, and we are here is like step 3 out of 20. So it's a long process for sure.
I just want to make one last point, only because this item has been brought up for discussion, and one of the points that really struck me is I think after the Ekistics folks talked to council, one of the things that they took back was the desire for affordable housing in the community. And I think in a way they took that to heart, because what they came back with and what they pitched at the open house was focused on that. But the numbers presented in this letter, you run through it with the calculator, and you realize that it's going to be really difficult for them to actually provide affordable housing. So I'm not knocking the development. I'm not weighing in on whether or not, like, all I'm trying to say is that I do agree with the numbers presented in the letter that suggests that it may be difficult for this to actually constitute an affordable housing development, even though that's what they're presenting. So that's all I'll say.
They had a panel at the open house that showed the affordable formula and the attainable formula, so people could do their own math with that. Yeah. And I think they're proposing to sell off some of the single-family lots first in order to, make some money before they embark on the affordable, attainable segments.
One thing to consider when we talk about affordable housing, and we have a housing shortage, and supply and demand dictates that it's driving prices up. Yeah. And one thing I'm seeing is properties that previously were sort of more affordable for local residents to buy in some of the certain neighborhoods in town have been driven up and gentrified. So by not providing housing in that 800,000 to $1 million mark, those people with that kind of money are just going in and buying up anything that's affordable and fixing it up to their liking, because there's just no homes to buy. And I think we have to be sort of cognizant of that's happening. Mm-hmm. The housing shortage is not just an affordable housing shortage, it's a housing shortage, mm-hmm. which is driving all prices up, and we need to really focus our attention on getting the right kind of homes built in all price ranges, or we're not going to tackle this situation.
Exactly. Councillor Anderson?
Be careful, some bias here, but I think I remember during the strategy we were talking about growth of the town, and we were talking, like the benefits of low, medium, and what that looks like, and I think there's a lot on the table right now that's inevitable. Like lot 16, there's Ocean West, potentially Monado. There's several projects that are in the way. So I kind of see sometimes if you have something with a density in a place that may not make it a ton of sense to have that high density, you're also putting a lot of eggs in that basket for our growth. So if you could almost take half the population of the town and put it on 30 acres, half of that 30 acres is quite proximal to open like a sewer and sewage treatment plant. So to put all of our growth strategy and the number of units that we want to put, or the number of people we want to add to this town, and stick them in one little area that's sort of outside of the city center, or from the major transit area, or Peninsula Road, for example, and have them come through the sort of residential areas like Helen Road. I don't dispute that there should be development at all. I just think, like, to really kind of put the density in one spot and put your eggs in that basket as opposed to spreading them out, because we've got a lot of like exciting things that are happening. I just didn't want to do everything in one spot. That was sort of like what weighs on my mind. And I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, so I don't want to get off that soapbox now.
Councillor Hoare, anything from you?
This letter is, I agree with all that my fellow councillors have said. It's very cogent. It's very to the point, and I did not make it to that open house because I had class. So, but yeah, there are a lot of issues around density, as Councillor Anderson says, density where you're requiring so much more increase of traffic across what is currently not a full 2-lane road and through residential neighborhoods. Like, there's a lot of work that would need to be done to put that density there. But yeah, again, there's a lot of steps in the process, and I just don't. At this point, I'm waiting to see more.
As these projects move through, the density always comes down. You never come out of the gate with low density. You come out guns blazing, and then the reality is you do this study and that knocks off 50 units. You do that study, it knocks off another 50 units. But for them, they start big and start moving it back, and that's up to us to guide them through that process. So, I mean, it's a bit early to be even discussing this because we don't know what the actual development permit is, but I don't think we should really be discussing it until we know exactly what it is, because people are emotional about it and they're getting worked up, and I think that could have a negative impact on the whole process.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of unknowns at this
there's
point.
a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And the reality is you know, there's two sides to the story. It's like, oh, we don't want all this development. Oh, it'll never work. So which is it? Is it never going to work, or is it going to be too much development? Because the reality is the site's going to tell the developers and everybody else what can go there, and if the sewage lagoons are a problem, then they won't develop it. So
I believe they have engineers looking at the lagoon at the moment. And just slightly off topic, but there is another public open house on Thursday for the Monado Bay development, and it's called District Development Corporation, so it has nothing to do with us, the District of Ucluelet. It's a developer that is inviting the public to attend the public open house. It'll be here, just like the one last Thursday was, January 25th from 5 to 7. And so that is to provide the public with an opportunity to view details of the project, ask questions of the project team, and again, provide feedback on the proposed application. And at the moment, they are planning on 300 doors, just as iFocus is planning on 300 doors. But those things can change based on public feedback and council feedback and planning department feedback. And so just bringing it to the public's attention that anyone who wants to look at what this group is planning to do at Monado Bay, to attend that one on Thursday. And as far as I know, they are planning on 100% rentals, so no purchases. And they would manage the rentals. So that is a niche that we're missing badly right now as well. So interesting times for sure. Item number 2, the guiding lights across BC. Councillor Hoare, we normally agree to lighting up our junction sign blue for the Girl Guides.
I know they have, in previous years, they have gone out and there's usually a photo or something, so.
Yes, so this would be the 4th year in a row. They started this during COVID when they couldn't gather together the normal way that they do. And so I think we should, I know the blue lights do exist. Is that correct, Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, that's correct.
So do you need a motion from us to,
That would be beneficial, yeah.
okay. Let me find the right page here.
Did they give you a motion? February 22nd.
February 22nd, yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
District is such a good name for a developer because he district approved.
District
of Ucluelet Developments.
This is such a good name.
February 22nd. Girl Guides Canada, but it's guiding lights across British Columbia.
And just as a side piece of trivia, the reason they asked for the blue lights is because the Girl Guide uniforms have always been blue. You'll win your next game of trivia with that one.
I'm still hearing the Jeopardy music in my head.
My sister never made it past brownies.
Wait, is she flunked out?
I don't know. She lost interest. I don't know.
We don't have a big group, but they're pretty passionate out here, so.
Are they?
Yeah.
And the Brownies uniforms are brown, just FYI.
Yeah.
Councillor Hoare?
I will move that council directs staff to light up the District of Ucluelet sign at the junction of Highway 4 and the Tofino-Ucluelet Highway in blue on February 22nd, 2024 in recognition of the Girl Guides Canada Guiding Light Across British Columbia event. Editing on the fly.
Seconded.
And Councillor Mafty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? None opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Rotenberg, for drafting that one up. Okay, there are 2 information items. Does council have any questions about the information report on resolution tracking?
Yes.
Councillor Hoare?
Page 117. This is always fun. Question about the traffic calming. I noticed the traffic calming has been deferred. The idea of making a policy. Now, I get queries about traffic calming probably on a weekly basis, various streets around town.
What-
I loved the idea of a traffic calming policy. I know.
What page are you on?
I am on page 117. I believe. Yes. It's the April 22nd. It's right in the middle of the. Or April. No, April 2022. Sorry, my bad. 9th of April.
Oh, I see it.
Does assigned.
Yeah, it says assigned, but it also says deferred. And I just, it's something that I think is is important. And we've talked about things like lowering speed limit in town and various traffic calming, and the whole notion was that there would be a policy to help us with this. So,
Mr. Lawrence, any comments?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is on the work plan for our Director of Engineering, James McIntosh. It just keeps on getting pushed a little bit because of other key priority projects. We're hoping that those will calm down in the next 3 months or so after Peninsula Road and the stormwater and Larch are complete. I will bring this back to him and delete deferred and add it back into his work plan. I know he had a basic one already done, and he's implemented the traffic calming on Bay, which was the primary one. We still have a little bit of work there to do with the zebra stripes and moving the crosswalk. So that one speed hump has already been included.
And I get thanked for that quite regularly, by the way.
Excellent. So, but we can add this back into the work plan for policy to expedite. We hadn't gotten rid of it. It's just been kind of sitting there for a while.
Anything else, Councillor Hoare?
page 126. I just wanted to confirm that the Monado Park dedication had been
What was the date on that?
December 7th is the date on it. It's right at the top of the page.
I can comment on that. We just signed the document today.
Sweet. Okay, that was just part of my excitement.
Perfect. Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in really quick, and I know I've already bugged you about this before, but I've had some people around town ask me if there was a possibility, especially with the upgrades for Peninsula Road between Seaplane and all the way down, when we do that, if there's a possibility with a couple of those crosswalks, there's been a couple of near misses, and then the potential for getting the lights. So, when you press the button and you get the sort of blinking lights, because there's that weird turn by the pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one sort of down towards Howlers, I think, as well, where there's been a couple of near misses. And I've had people ask me about that and just say, is there any possibility of getting something a little more, flashy when someone presses the button to use that crosswalk?
Right. I will have to get back to council on that. I can't recall whether or not those are included within the development plans. I'm going to say probably not, but we can always add something like that in at a later date. But let me get back to council on that and just confirm.
Right. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Can I jump an extra question onto that one? It's got to do with Peninsula Road upgrades.
Sure.
I thought they were due to be done by the end of May, but it appears to be the end of summer now. On the notice that went out to all of everybody with their water and sewer ones. I've had a few people say, what? They're doing this through the summer?
Through the mayor. So work will begin starting in February, right? So we just had our pre-construction meeting this morning. They'll do some site investigation and marking out of the layout starting next week. They'll also be doing a little bit of work in the foreshore where the outfall is for the storm line, and then they'll start working on everything. So it's about a 20-week build and then paving after that. So we're working on with MODI, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, on the paving component of that. It looks like it's going to line up quite nicely for us. But we give lots of room to make sure that we can complete the project. So we anticipate by March, April, May, end of May, and it may be June at the most, but we give lots of wiggle room just in case. But no, there's no intent to have open construction or anything like that in July. Absolutely not.
Okay, and it is a 12-hour window for construction too. They're 7 to 7, is that correct?
I would have to get back to council on that. I think it's usually a standard work day, so usually from 7 till about 4 or 5 is the normal time. They are closing everything up after at the end of each day, and we'll have lots of cones and barriers in place for the place that they're working. So essentially, they excavate, do their work, and then backfill it up to a small section where they can where they're progressing to. So it'll be an ongoing moving process. So the whole area won't be open like an open construction area. It'll be a moving construction area all the way along.
And I did notice that they were saying that there might be weekend and evening stuff as needed. So my guess is if something goes sideways.
The best practice is tell everybody that you're going to need the world and everything and then not use it. Better than saying that we won't have anything on weekends and evenings and then require it.
I just thought I would verbalize this because, you know, Peninsula Road.
Sorry, going back to that crosswalk stuff.
Councillor Anderson.
At the UBCM, they had a stand, and there was one of the safety. She had the big flashing lights, and then she came to Ucluelet, I think, on her vacation last summer, and I had her. She came over, I think, maybe met with James, I think, but the CEO of that company, Stephanie Carr, I think her name was. She was saying that she believes, and I'm trying to remember this. I'm gonna destroy this, but she basically said that if Modi was doing the paving, that there was a grant that she thought that this would be essentially free to put those in. So, and I don't want to get in trouble for that, but I recall that she said, "Oh, if that's the situation, you guys are doing that upgrade at the time, that's the perfect time to do the installation."
Absolutely. I will investigate and get back to council.
I think it's ICBC related.
Could be.
Yeah.
Mr. Gregg?
Since our director of engineering can't be here, I'll just pinch hit a bit. In the past, some of the flashing ones, I'm thinking like in Boardwalk Boulevard, that was an ICBC grant that helped fund putting in that crosswalk where the visibility was a little less. So you know, from time to time, yes, ICBC is keen to help with those things. So again, I don't recall if they are included in all the civil drawing package for this project. I don't think so, but that is something that it's very possible to add in.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Gregg. The last information item is just appointment of Pacific Rim School District of Ucluelet representative, which is Cynthia Orr. She's a school trustee for the West Coast. And I noticed in the letter that they are asking that any necessary information, support, meeting agendas, and minutes be forwarded to her. So just making a note that staff should do that. I don't know if they want all our agendas and minutes or only the ones that have an item pertaining to School District 70. But that might be a follow-up for staff to figure that out. Okay, we're on to council committee reports. For mayor's announcements, I was just going to mention that public open house this Thursday at the community center, so I've already said that. So we'll move on to committee reports. Councillor Anderson, anything from California?
Yeah, nothing from, well, actually, when I was away, there was an ACHN meeting, but I wasn't able to attend it because my whole family got COVID at the same time when we were down there. So I actually probably had it during our last, when I zoomed in. They all had it and I didn't have it, but then the next day I did. So
Oh my goodness.
something about that meeting gave me COVID, I think. So sorry, what I mean is it has nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thank you.
That might explain the red face. It might have been a bit of a fever.
No, that was
Not a
definitely
sunburn.
sunburn.
Yeah, it was
It looked
full-on
like
a sun and
it looked
burn.
like a sunburn. Sorry.
Skin.
Right.
Councillor Hoare.
I attended the Wild Pacific Trail Society meeting on January 10th. Josh, who was their naturalist, is returning for another year later in the late spring, and they're hoping to get a second one, so they're applying for the grants for summer students. So they're hoping to have full-time programming, every day of the week from June 1st on, as they did last year, with their partners and the naturalists. So that's super exciting. And one of the interesting little bits, just an FYI, the Trail Society was notified, and I gathered they're working with the district. There is a burrweed infestation at Big Beach. The only way to get rid of it is to burn it out, and apparently there is a process to do that. And yeah, so that was the bad news part of the Trail Society meeting. And then on January 11th, I attended a Groundfish Trawl Advisory Council meeting by Zoom with no power. That was fun. Every piece of technology in my house was being used to attend that meeting. It was interesting. They are the offshore hake fishery. They were talking about how the numbers they're seeing for the fishable size is the lowest they've seen, second lowest ever that they've seen for that year class. So more information will follow on that sort of thing. So there's offshore hake, and then there's Gulf hake, which happens in the Salish Sea. And the Gulf hake has been a really strong fishery, and in fact has been a big part of what has been fueling our plant down at UHS. So the fish has been caught in the inside waters, landed at French Creek, trucked to here, so it supports the trucking company and it supports UHS and keeps people working. And because they have a lot of foreign workers and they have to work them a certain number of hours in a week. It's just really kind of fascinating. They're smaller fish than offshore, but there's not as much known about that population. So that kind of makes me a little concerned about how heavily they have been fishing it. While I was attending that council meeting, I got contacted by the Groundfish Development Authority, who is looking to get me to sit on their committee, which is the one that meets in the summer. So I think we kind of got mixed up about committees, but now I'm on track for that, even though it's the absolute worst time of the year for my world, but that's okay. We'll make it happen. So that was my life.
Great. I knew that committee would be right up your alley.
Well, it was really fun. Oh, and I just want to recommend that if you're going to attend, I won't be able to make the open house on Thursday, but if you're going to attend, wear your kilt, bring some haggis, because it is Robbie Burns night on Thursday. So
Good to know. Thank you. Councillor Kennington?
Nothing to report at this time.
Councillor Mafty?
The only thing I'll mention is I had a chance to go to the Akisix open house and have some very interesting discussions with a lot of folks and learn a little bit more about how they're presenting the project. But other than that, I only just got back, so nothing else.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
For myself, on January 10th, I attended an ACRD meeting by Zoom. One of the interesting reports for information that was in that package was a list of all the communities that are part of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, and it showed the assessment change from BC Assessment, and I see that the city of Port Alberni, for example, is down 0.96%. District of Tofino is up 2.35%. Us, District of Ucluelet, down 1.26%. But there were some anomalies that were really interesting. Bamfield is up 14.26%. And the Hawaiiat First Nation is up 18.53%. And I think both of those have to do with the chip sealing of the road, because now they're more accessible.
Totally. I wonder how far they'll go down once that surface degrades in 2 to 3 years and the road will be worse than it was before.
That's an interesting comment. Yeah, so anyway, it's if anybody wants to access this, it's on page 127 of their January 10th agenda package, which would be on their website. There were only 3 items in that meeting that had anything to do with the West Coast. The first was a grant application for a backup generator at the Long Beach Airport. The second one was a 10-year lease agreement for the Long Beach Golf Course and Campground. And the third one was a 5-year term to operate the West Coast landfill, which they awarded to the same people who have been doing it, Barry and Vale Contracting. Everyone felt that they're doing a really great job at our landfill, and we're happy to award them another 5-year contract to do that. And then again on the 18th, I attended the Acoustics open house regarding High Focus. I was only there from 4 till 5, but heard lots of comments from lots of people, and I thought they did a good job of answering people's questions. Okay.
It's not really question related, but I forgot to say it. I was just going to give a shout out. So the class that I have on Thursday nights is the adult dinner theater. So encouraging anybody out there who thinks they might have even the tiniest acting bone in their body. We take all comers, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. So.
And it's Thursdays from what time?
From 7 to 9.
7 to 9, and it's here?
Yeah.
Great.
And it's a bunch of Saturday Night Live skits and various other skits and things that are happening this time. And there's some pretty good ones, and there's some interesting peeps. And my guy got out of, he's stepping outside the box and doing dinner theater. So anybody can do it. Just saying.
I saw that on the community board, and I actually thought twice about it.
Well, feel free. You don't have to do a lot. You can do a little.
Yeah, you might see me there. That's awesome. Okay. Question period. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions about matters within Council's jurisdiction. Representations about matters that have been the subject of a public hearing are not permitted at this time. Are there any questions from the audience? Seeing no one in the audience, clerk, are there any questions by Zoom or telephone?
Please click the raise your hand icon if you have a question of council at this point. Or click *9. There are no hands raised at this time.
And have we received any questions via email to communityinput@ucluelet.ca?
No questions via community input.
Okay, I move that the meeting be closed to the public in order to address agenda items under section 90 brackets 1 brackets F, 90 brackets 1 brackets I, and 90 brackets 2 brackets B of the community charter. Law enforcement, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of an enactment. B, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And C, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. The meeting is now closed to the public at 5:18.
Just need a resolution, so you need a seconder there.
I'll second that.
And I need to make a clarification to, what were the sections? So,
No.
you're closing it under 90 sub 1 sub G,
Oh, not F?
not F, that was an error, apologies. And that is litigation or potential litigation affecting municipality. So, what I suggest you do is just amend your own resolution there. Let's do a do-over, let's substitute F, G for F.
Okay. I move that the meeting be closed to the public in order to address agenda items under sections 90-1-G, 90-1-I, and 90-2-B of the community charter.
I'll second.
Councillor Hoare seconds. All in favor? None opposed? That carries.